Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH The Flame Emperor episode number 149 based on novel. So let's start. Is this the moving ruler? Xiao Yan's eyes became dull, because the ancient aura emanating from the golden fighting skill scroll made his body tremble. This is. After a few breaths, Xiao Yan's eyes became surprised, because at this time, the golden scroll had been slowly opened by Xiao Yang, and a few lines of prominent characters slowly appeared in the golden scroll. Moving the ruler of the sky is the ingenuity of the sky, using the ruler as a body, and using the ruler as a living. This technique is my proud work. Cultivation to the end, enough to use force to return force, or to strike the sky. Just a few lines of big characters appeared directly on the golden scroll. What about the cultivation method of fighting skills? Although these lines of characters shocked Xiao Yang, it was obvious that fighting skills were extraordinary, but Xiao Yang frowned. Isn't this golden scroll the treasure of their own palace? Why is it empty? A fighting skill scroll must record this cultivation method. If there is no cultivation method, it will definitely not be kept in this way. And no matter how powerful this fighting skill is, if there is no specific cultivation method, an empty shell will obviously not help at a higher level. This is. Xiao Yang's eyes were focused on the old guard. That meant he was clearly saying, "Are you kidding me all the time? This fighting skill scroll has been like this ever since it appeared in our burning incense pavilion. It's just these few big characters. This is the reason why no one has successfully cultivated for thousands of years." The old guard coughed a few times and then said, "What the hell?" Xiao Yang couldn't help cursing. He came here hard and was tortured. As a result, the old man told himself that writing a scroll of fighting skills was like this. Isn't this an obvious trick? Hey, boy, we didn't lie to you. The cultivation method of this heavenly ruler is specifically on this Do skill scroll. The reason why there is no cultivation method on this Do skill scroll, I'm afraid it is your fate with him. I haven't arrived yet. After all, the pavilion master has personally read the Do skill scroll. The old guard said immediately. Dare to be so sure of the fighting spirit powerhouses. But there is clearly nothing else in this fighting skill scroll. Talking about fate with me, I still don't believe in this evil. Xiao Yang said coldly, but his eyes were fixed on the golden scroll. No, I'm afraid there is a secret in this Do skill scroll. The next moment, Xiao Yang, a dazzling Emperor Yang suddenly appeared on the palm of his hand, and then without hesitation, he directly burned away at the golden scroll. Ah, boy, what are you doing? Xiao Yang's actions just took action, and the old guard hurriedly shouted. If it were an ordinary person, I am afraid that the old guard would not be like this, but this person is Xiao Yang. Not to mention that Xiao Yang is Zhu Jin's disciple. Just the flame power on this kid made me vigilant. If this kid destroys this precious fighting skill scroll, I'm afraid I won't be able to escape. Boom boom boom. Xiao Yang's flame was finally one step faster than the old guard's, and in just one breath, it was wrapped around the golden fighting skill scroll. Boy. The old guard came to Xiao Yang's side, and just wanted to extinguish the flame, but saw a slight change on the golden scroll. Good guy. Xiao Yang couldn't help scolding. My own Emperor Flame is a flame that combines the power of 23 different fires. Although the strange fire is not comparable to the holy flame, it is better than those 23 different attributes. Even this Emperor Flame is extremely powerful. Fear. But where did Xiao Yang think that in the face of such a terrifying power of Emperor Yang, this golden scroll was actually indifferent? At most, there was a slight change in the golden scroll. Flame. How could the flame affect this golden scroll? After the pavilion master came here, I have tried flames, soul power or spiritual power, including some rare methods of poisonous fighting chi, but it didn't work. How can this kid's flame actually make this golden scroll change? The old guard came. When he arrived at Xiao Yang's side, he noticed some changes. Under the burning of Xiao Yang's flame, the few lines of large characters on the golden scroll actually faintly showed signs of melting. Although this change was extremely weak, it was still felt by the old guard who was as powerful as the 9-star Do Emperor. Increase the intensity of the flame, don't stop, it seems that you can really create miracles. The old guard said directly to Xiao Yang the next moment. As Xiao Yang continued to spread out the power of Emperor Yang, at this time Xiao Yang's body was indistinctly squandered a lot of Do Qi. After all, Emperor Yang was very consuming Do Qi. No, this flame is not strong enough. If your flame is stronger, it might be possible, but now it is not possible. The old guard looked at Xiao Yang sweating profusely, and immediately said, The old guard knows that this is almost the limit of Xiao Yang. Hey, you can go back. There are quite a few saint-level fighting skills in this Do-skill pavilion. You should go out and find a fighting skill that suits you. Don't think about this treasure of the palace. Since the flame is useful for this fighting skill scroll, I will go back and tell the pavilion master and them to see if they can find a solution. I have to say, you are really surprising. Don't worry, we will definitely give you a chance to cultivate once this fighting skill scroll is resolved. The old guard smiled. Di Yang can't do it. It seems that this Emperor Yang is still a little weaker after all. Xiao Yang shook his head helplessly, then stretched his waist, as if he had decided to do something. Go out quickly, while you still have time, it's enough for you to find another exercise. The old guard hurriedly left here and went out to report this shocking news to the senior management of Funxiang Pavilion. The problem is that you can also regain your freedom. Ha. Senior, don't go in a hurry. I still have a way I haven't tried. How do you know that I can't succeed? Xiao Yang smiled slowly. The old guard was secretly startled. Although he didn't know why, Xiao Yang's smile at this time actually made him feel faintly uneasy. Sheng Yang, come out. Seeing that the old man stopped, Xiao Yang opened his mouth slightly. As Xiao Yang opened his mouth, a khaki yellow holy flame replaced as many as 23 emperor flames on Xiao Yang's body. Immediately, in the entire stone hall, the 8 stone pillars also trembled, and even Xiao Yang's body trembled. The eternal fire, eternal ruler behind him and the golden scroll on the palm all resonated extremely happily. This is the power of holy flame. The next moment, the old guard's pupils shrank tightly, staring at the khaki yellow flame power on Xiao Yang's body as if he were looking at a monster. In that khaki flame, there was a huge force that made him feel uneasy, slowly entrenched, like a dragon ready to go. Go. Xiao Yang didn't hesitate, he used his holy flame power to go towards the golden scroll. And as the power of this holy flame surfaced on the golden scroll, the lines of characters on the golden scroll were like snow meeting the fiery flames and quickly melted away. A smile appeared on the corner of Xiao Yang's mouth. It seemed that this problem was finally solved, but before Xiao Yang could react, a strange power was scattered from the golden scroll, which directly swallowed Xiao Yang and entered immediately. The golden scroll rolled up automatically, and the khaki-colored holy flame was outside the golden scroll, like a guard. My dear, it seems that this time, there really is an incredible little guy in the hall of people. I have to say, Zhu Jin, you old monster's disciple is also a monster. The old guard was full of smiles. He naturally knew about the scene just now that the golden scroll was successfully deciphered and Xiao Yang was taken to the scroll. I have gone to practice fighting skills in the independent space, so I am not worried. Humph. What a scroll of moving the sky ruler, but it hides such a mystery. If it hadn't been for Christmas, I'm afraid no one would be able to crack the secret of moving the sky ruler. The pavilion owner of Burning Incense Pavilion should have the power of Shengyanzi fire, but Shengyanzi fire and Sheng Yang are two things after all. The holy flame is too precious. If I didn't get it by chance, I'm afraid I would have missed out on this fighting skill. Xiao Yang said slowly in his heart. Just after Xiao Yang finished speaking, his eyes suddenly lit up. Xiao Yang didn't even have to think about it, he knew that he had arrived, and he had arrived at the independent space in the scroll of the heaven-shifting ruler. The holy rank fighting skill is called the holy rank. The big reason is because the holy rank fighting skill has an independent space. Once the practitioner senses the cultivation method of the fighting skill, they will be led to the independent space. First, it protects the cultivators from being disturbed in their practice, and secondly, it also protects the holy rank fighting skills. After all, if you are observed by others while you are cultivating, some people with extraordinary talents will easily learn it. It's so hot. Just as Xiao Yang opened his eyes, the dazzling sunlight scattered in an instant, and there was an extremely hot breath that followed. Although Xiao Yang had holy flames and strange fires on his body, the heat still made him feel hot. Xiao Yang was slightly surprised. Dessert. Just after getting used to the hot and dazzling light here, and after his eyes regained his vision, Xiao Yang immediately glanced around, and then the vast desert that stretched as far as the eye could see, like golden sand, looked extremely dazzling under the sunlight. It's really a big hand. Xiao Yang laughed. According to Xiao Yang's perception, this huge desert is at least bigger than Xian Santian's lonely desert of death. Such a huge handwriting is enough to show the strength of the creator of this fighting skill. According to the memory I just perceived, this method of cultivation should be here. Xiao Yang laughed, and then the dazzling holy flame suddenly condensed in his hand, and struck directly at a certain piece of sky in the desert. Following Xiao Yang's blow like this, a golden phantom slowly appeared in the sky. After waiting for so many years, I finally welcomed someone with a predestined relationship. An old voice sounded from the old man's mouth. Junior Xiao Yang, I have seen senior shifting heaven ruler. Xiao Yang bowed slowly, facing the phantom in the sky. This phantom is not a real entity, but just a phantom that records the cultivation method of the heaven-shifting ruler. Not bad, polite boy. The 35th of the Holy Flame list, Fireheart Tianyang. Emperor-ranked pharmacist. 6-star Do DS complete strength. Xu Ying turned his head and commented on Xiao Yang. This phantom has a face full of stubble, but the magnificent breath between the eyebrows is frightening, like heaven and earth. Senior, this junior is here for the cultivation method. Xiao Yang naturally did not hide his strength at all. After all, the strength of the old man in front of him had at least reached the level of Do Xian, so Xiao Yang asked directly. Business. Hey, no hurry. Do you know why I need Holy Flame to practice this fighting skill? Moving the Sky Ruler Void Shadow smiled at Xiao Yang. I don't know, but this fighting skill requires Holy Flame to be activated. This is really powerful. If it wasn't for this younger generation getting a Holy Flame by chance, I'm afraid they would be powerless. After all, Holy Flame fire can't start. Xiao Yang said. What you said is not bad. This fighting skill is the proud work of this immortal. If it is learned by some cats and dogs, wouldn't it be embarrassing? Pride. Hihi, the ruler behind you is a good ruler. It is born from the condensation of flames. If the light wheel is ranked, I am afraid it can be ranked in the top 10 of the fairy weapons. Even if it is not complete now, it is enough for you to practice the moving sky ruler. Moving the sky ruler phantom said. It's not complete. Xiao Yang was surprised when he heard the words. What kind of secret this ancient ruler of eternal fire holds? The secret of this ruler will naturally be known to you in the future. It's too early to tell you now. Tian Tianchi phantom smiled slowly. Okay, this phantom exists for a limited time. Next, I will teach you the specific cultivation method of moving the sky ruler. After you master it, I will use the last power of this phantom to demonstrate it to you. I hope that after you learn it, don't humiliate the prestige of this fighting skill, said the illusory shadow. Okay. Xiao Yang didn't hesitate, just sat down with his legs crossed and closed his eyes. Close your eyes and calm down, and accept what I pass on to you. These are some of my experiences in cultivating the heaven-shifting ruler. The phantom of the heaven-shaking ruler said solemnly. When Xiao Yang heard the words, he immediately followed suit. Boom boom boom. The next moment, in Xiao Yang's mind, a huge amount of information kept pouring in. This information not only has the cultivation method of moving the sky ruler, but also has the experience of the practice of moving the sky ruler. For Xiao Yang, this was a huge fortune. Okay, that's all the way to cultivate the heavenly ruler, plus some of my experience, you can feel it yourself. After that, the shadow of the heavenly ruler stood quietly beside Xiao Yang, to protect Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang absorbed such a huge amount of information for a while. Immediately, soul power and spiritual power were simultaneously extracted, and he kept extracting this information. Then he carefully realized it in his heart. In the face of Xiao Yang's eagerness to learn, Yi Tianqi Shuiying is also willing to give pointers. 1 day, 10 days, 27 days passed in an instant, and in a blink of an eye, it was 3 days before the 4th floor of the Doji Pavilion closed. Apart from the Doji Pavilion, all the disciples had already been waiting here. The 7 people who entered the deepest part of the Doji Pavilion, except for Xiao Yang, the other 6 were all the treasures of the palace who had successfully cultivated their own temples. I think that Xiao Yang's kid is probably trapped inside. If Xiao Yang hasn't come out in a month, I'm afraid he will fall inside. Among the crowd, there were many people watching the fun, and they said immediately. Second senior brother, you said, Xiao Yang, will he succeed in the cultivation of the treasure of the palace that no one has successfully cultivated since its establishment? Although Ling Xian successfully cultivated the treasure of the palace in her own palace, but she didn't feel complacent. After all, Ling Xian knew that the fighting skills of this man's palace had not been successfully cultivated for thousands of years, and it was far more powerful than the fighting skills of their underground palace. I don't know, I think it's very possible. After all, this kid was chosen by Elder Zhu as a closed disciple. Senior brother Zhu Yuan shook his head slowly, although they did not have any deep hatred for Xiao Yang, but intuition told him that this Xiao Yang was by no means an ordinary person. Xiao Yang, you can't have anything to do, you promised to make medicinal pills for me. Qinshan on the side prayed for Xiao Yang as for Mu Yingying and a few people on the side, although there is no treasure of the Hall of Cultivation, but they all have a lot of fighting skills. Laro Mu, this Xiao Yang, should something happen? If it doesn't come out within a month, I'm afraid we will take action afterwards, and the price will be a bit high. Xiong Yuan, who was in charge of opening and closing the 4th floor of the Doji Pavilion, said to Mu Shuzi, "Isn't it just a little price? I'll give it back to you." Mu Shuzi said in a huff when he heard the words. "Lao Mu, I'm not telling you, if this Xiao Yang has learned the fighting skills of your human palace, let alone that bit of fighting skills, even if it is the medicinal pills of your human palace for the past 10 years, I will pack it for you." Xiong Yuan saw that Mu Shuzi had a plan, and immediately made a bet. Although the two knew each other, they could not avoid some battles. Okay. Mu Shuzi didn't even think about it, he simply agreed. For some reason, Mu Shuzi always had an inexplicable sense of expectation for Xiao Yang. This guy entered the highest place in the Tongtian River and broke the record of the 9th level cultivation cave, so it is not surprising that he is breaking a record now. Okay, it's a deal. Seeing that Mu Shuzi agreed, Xiong Yuan immediately clapped his hands and said, "I don't know why, Xiong Yuan seems to have met Mu Shuzi, a guy who is sure to lose every gamble when he loses." On the 4th floor of the Doji Pavilion, where the treasured Doji scrolls of the Hall of Humanity are stored, the old guard in the stone hall slowly opened his eyes. "It's the last day, little guy, it's almost it." After the old guard finished speaking, he suddenly felt a familiar wave from the golden scroll. This wave should be Xiao Yang. At this time, among the golden scrolls, there is an independent space. Calculate the time, it should be almost the same. Xiao Yang opened his eyes slightly and said. During the past few days, Xiao Yang has been closing his eyes and pondering, carefully comprehending the cultivation method passed on by the shadow of the moving sky ruler. The cultivation method of this moving sky ruler is quite mysterious. There is also a lot of confusion about his perception, but fortunately, there is a phantom that moves the sky to explain it, which is easy. Good. In the past 10 or so days, although you haven't mastered the moving sky ruler, you have mastered the essentials of moving the sky ruler. If so, I am relieved. There was a hint of relief in the voice. After all, before the phantom he left behind disappeared, someone inherited his fighting skills, and the phantom that moved the sky slowly smiled. Seeing this, Xiao Yang got up slightly, looked at the moving sky ruler and bowed. Until now, Xiao Yang didn't understand why this fighting skill scroll could not be opened unless it was a holy flame. The power needed to move the ruler is as strong, and it must be holy flame. Okay, this Doji Pavilion is about to be closed. In the last power of my phantom, I will cover up this Do skill for you, look at it. After Yi Qianqi phantom finished speaking, he suddenly had an ancient aura all over his body. Diffuse out. This aura just appeared, and the ancient ruler of eternal fire behind Xiao Yang suddenly resonated with great joy, as if the power of the phantom that moved the sky was quite attractive to him. I'll lend you a ruler. The phantom of the moving ruler was suspended in the sky of the golden desert, and a monarch-like terrifying aura burst out suddenly, and then called out to Xiao Yang. When Xiao Yang saw this, he immediately took off the ancient eternal fire ruler behind him and projected it towards the phantom of the heaven-shifting ruler. Shabu Shabu. It's really good. Such a good ruler cooperates with my powerful fighting skills, and this is not the name of shifting the sky. The shadow of the shifting ruler took over the ancient ruler of eternal fire that was projected by Xiao Yang, and smiled slowly, while shifting the sky. Every time Kai Shuering touched the ancient ruler of Yi Huaheng, the ancient ruler of Yi Huaheng would resonate extremely happily, which made Xiao Yang even more curious about this ancient ruler of Yi Huaheng. Okay. Tian Tian Kai Shuering snorted coldly, and then said to Xiao Yang. Senior, please. At this time, Xiao Yang focused all his attention on the shadow of the moving sky ruler. Although he had already had a glimpse of the way to cultivate the sky-moving ruler these days, he didn't do it after all, so it was still worse. Some of the heat, now the creator of this moving sky ruler is covering up for himself, how could Xiao Yang let such a great opportunity pass? Concentrate, calm down. Conditioning breath. You have to remember that at this moment, the ruler in your hand is a part of your life, you are the ruler, and the ruler is also you. Tian Tianqi Shuering closed his eyes slightly and said to Xiao Yang. For some reason, with the phantom of moving the sky ruler, Xiao Yang clearly felt that an extremely dazzling force was poised to strike. Moving the sky ruler. At the next moment, the shadowy eyes of the moving sky ruler suddenly opened, and a breath like the awakening of a giant dragon burst out suddenly, and then the ancient ruler of the eternal fire on the palm of the virtual shadow flashed a very dazzling light. That dazzling light roared away directly at the underground golden desert, and its terrifying degree was no less than Xiao Yang's full-strength strike. Boom boom boom. The terrifying sky-moving ruler drives the extremely destructive power, forcibly blasting a huge gap in the golden desert, and even a trace of the remaining ruler force, which makes people afraid. Meaning, what a terrifying fighting skill. Although Xiao Yang did not feel the full power of this sky-moving ruler for the time being, Xiao Yang's soul perception clearly told himself that if such a terrifying attack hit him, I am afraid you have to peel off your skin if you don't die. If it hits a normal 6-star Do Emperor consummation or a 7-star Do Emperor, I am afraid it can be killed instantly. Even if the attack method of this moving sky ruler is like this, the human ruler is one, and the power of destruction erupts. As for the specific secrets, it still needs your logistics and practice in the future. The illusory shadow of the moving sky ruler slowly put away the ancient ruler of different fire and eternal, and then said to Xiao Yang, "This junior has been taught." Seeing this, Xiao Yang agreed with a guilty conscience. Indeed, although the fighting skills of this saint class are quite powerful, only with more practice can they exert their power. Okay, after talking about the attack method of moving the sky ruler, let's talk about the defense method. When Xiao Yang seemed to have a sense, the virtual shadow gave Xiao Yang a strange smile. Defense method. Xiao Yang was shocked when he heard the words. According to what Mu Shuzi said, isn't this heaven-shifting ruler only an attack method? When did a defensive method come out? Just by looking at you like this, you know that you don't understand this fighting skill. Moving the ruler of the sky, moving the ruler of the sky, the name of moving the sky, isn't it a vain name? The power of this moving sky ruler may not be too strong in the attack, but I dare to say that this defense method, I am afraid that it can definitely be at the top of all the known holy rank fighting eyes. The virtual shadow is extremely proud. The voice is full of pride for this fighting skill. If you don't believe me, you try to attack me with all your strength. Xu Ying immediately spoke when he saw Xiao Yang's dubious attitude. Okay. Xiao Yang agreed, and then without hesitation, the bright earth-yellow holy flame, the fire-heart heavenly rock appeared instantly. Rock-breaking heaven burial. A fearful voice echoed in this golden desert, and Xiao Yang immediately displayed the source power of holy flame once again. This is the most tyrannical attack that Xiao Yang has mastered right now. Good boy, the mastery of Shenyang is so high. But that's fine, let you know the tyranny of my fighting skills. After moving the sky ruler phantom, he smiled strangely, and then the ancient ruler of the eternal fire in his hand emitted a burst of extremely bright light. The power of boom boom boom. The ancient ruler of Yihuaheng and Xiao Yang's holy flame had just touched, but they did not make a heaven-shattering sound as expected, but Xiao Yang's terrifying holy flame was touching Yihuaheng. After the sky-shifting ruler displayed by the ancient ruler, it froze strangely. Move the ruler, move it to me. Just when Xiao Yang was puzzled, the shadow of the moving sky ruler suddenly drank, and Xiao Yang's huge holy flame was instantly swallowed up by the moving sky rock and disappear. Xiao Yang was shocked when he saw it. He was very aware of the horror of this holy flame's power. How could it be easily resolved by moving the sky ruler? Boom boom boom. Not long after, thousands of kilometers away from Xiao Yang and the others, a destructive mushroom cloud slowly rose up. It felt like it was his own holy flame power. Boy, do you understand? Although the heaven-shifting ruler attack is also a holer-level fighting skill, it is ultimately a more terrifying means of defense. After the phantom had performed this blow, it seemed that he had lost all his vitality, and said to Xiao Yang, "So that's the case." Xiao Yang nodded in understanding. The last moment of this phantom just now gave Xiao Yang a lot of insights. It's good to understand, it's not in vain for our fate. Boy, do it yourself. After the virtual shadow finished speaking, it suddenly turned into a ray of light and dissipated in an instant, obviously using all his strength. Junior sends senior respectfully. Xiao Yang put away the ancient ruler of Yihuaheng, and immediately respected the place where the moving ruler disappeared. At this point, the journey to the fighting skill pavilion is perfectly over. Outside the burning incense pavilion and the doji pavilion. As usual, only the first to third floors are open throughout the day. As for the entrance to the fourth floor above the sky, the light is already dim. Obviously, today is the last day. The disciple of the sect, I am afraid that the strong sect must take action to bring it back. Although the price paid for this kind of action is not small, it is the last resort. Among the many disciples who entered the fourth floor of the doji pavilion, only Xiao Yang has not come out yet, and the rest of the disciples have already left, and many of them have obtained powerful doji exercises. Hehe, Laomu, even looking at Xiao Yang, it seems that I can't break the nightmare of your human palace for hundreds of years. Xiong Yuan said with a simple and honest smile. Xiong Yuan naturally knows a little about the fighting skill scroll of the treasure of the Hall of Humanity. After all, both of them can be regarded as the top of the burning incense pavilion. It's not over yet, what's the hurry? Mu Shuzi also took Xiao Yang in his heart, and gave Xiong Yuan a helpless look. If you can't succeed, you can't fail. It's just a fighting skill. If we lose this disciple, I'm afraid our human temple's strength will be greatly reduced. Mu Shuzi secretly said in his heart. Okay, Laomu, don't worry, there is a strong guard guarding your human hall. With him, Xiao Yang will definitely not have an accident, but it's a bit strange that he hasn't come out for so long. Yuan regained his calm and said to Mu Shuzi, hopefully. Mu Shuzi shook his head when he heard the words, and then stopped talking, but murmured and waiting for the disciple named Xiao Yang to perform miracles. When Xiong Yuan saw this, how could he not know what Mu Shuzi was thinking? But at this last moment, it was obviously unrealistic, but Xiong Yuanye did not expose it, but accompanied Mu Shuzi to wait. At this time, at the feet of Mu Shuzi and Xiong Yuan, hundreds of disciples were already standing here. Obviously, these disciples entered the doji pavilion and obtained a lot of doji exercises, and wanted to make a splash at the end of this doji pavilion incident. For this matter, burning incense pavilion was originally not allowed, but this habit has been handed down. After the doji pavilion is over, all the disciples who enter the doji pavilion can choose to challenge their own hall or other powerhouses. If they succeed, they will instantly take the place of the challenge. For example, a disciple of the Earth Palace challenged the third senior brother of the Earth Palace. If this disciple of the Earth Palace wins, he will undoubtedly say that he will replace the third senior brother of the Earth Palace. The senior brothers in the Hall of Earth or the Hall of People, whether it is the place of residence or the resources for cultivation, are all enviable. Haha, why hasn't Xiao Yang of that person's palace come out yet? It's the last day, won't it be impossible to get out? Among the crowd, there were many disciples who liked to watch the fun and cheer. Hey, who knows? Maybe it's because I failed and didn't have the face to come out and cry. No, I remember that this guy killed the twin ghost emperors in the previous points looting competition. There were different opinions in the crowd. These people are too much. The four of them, Mu Yingying, naturally came here early in the morning to wait for Xiao Yang. After all, Xiao Yang had not left for a long time, and everyone was a little worried. Don't worry about them, they're all yellow-haired children. Xiao Yi stood aside and said directly. After all, the people who just spoke were quite weak. You. The extremely figure who was talking about Xiao Yang just now saw Xiao Yi's fierce aura emerging, and the room's expression was ugly, because they suddenly found that the pressure brought by Xiao Yi's strength was not inferior to their own sect. Elder, watch your mouth. Xiao Yi snorted coldly, and Ruijin took back his breath. When those disciples who were talking about Xiao Yang heard the words, they were shocked and stopped talking about Xiao Yang. Hey, do you know? Ads by Pub Future. It is said that Qinshin from the Heavenly Palace has obtained the treasure of the Heavenly Palace this time. That kind of beauty and such a huge strength, I am afraid that it will shine in the next sect competition. Heavenly Palace? Isn't that a temple with only 7 people? Why is Qinshin from the Heavenly Palace? I always thought she belonged to our earthly palace. You don't know about this, Qinshin is like the disciple of the Deputy Hall Master today, so. Hey, what is this? It is said that several senior brothers in our underground palace have also mastered the treasures of our underground palace. I am afraid that this time the sect competition will be a battle of dragons and tigers. Among the crowd some disciples kept saying. I can't believe that the disciples in the Heavenly Palace and the Earth Palace have all succeeded in their cultivation. Although the treasures of their second hall did not expect the human hall to be powerful, but they can successfully cultivate, the strength of these people should not be underestimated. Next to Mu Feng and the others were the named disciples of the original human hall. The 3 named disciples had also been waiting here for a long time. The 3 of them have entered the place where the treasures of the people's palace are stored on the 4th floor of the Doji Pavilion, but with their strength, they have no way to cultivate, and this is why they failed. This time they came here, mainly to see that Xiao Yang is doing a miracle. Is this treasure of the palace really so difficult? Mu Yingying shook her head in disapproval and said, looking at the stone gate of the Doji Pavilion in the sky, suddenly a familiar aura slowly emanated. He's fine. He's back. The next moment, Mu Yingying's eyes flashed with a look of light, and then she cast a look of anticipation at the shaman of the Doji Pavilion. Because Mu Yingying possesses holy flame in her body, she is naturally very sensitive to Xiao Yang, who also possesses holy flame. Someone came out. Someone in the crowd said something, and the noisy ground suddenly regained its calm. The eyes of hundreds of disciples were all locked on the stone gate, as if they were all waiting for a result. This breath. It's Xiao Yang. However, this Xiao Yang's aura is more powerful than when he entered the Doji pavilion before. Ling Xian said slightly. Hihi, the soldiers come to block the water and cover the soil. I would like to see if the rumored fighting skills in the Hall of Humanity are really as powerful as they are rumored to be. I hope this kid won't let me down. If he really succeeds, it's worth my shot, otherwise. Next to Ling Xian, the second senior brother Zhu Yuan of the Earth Hall also stared at Shimendao on the 4th floor of the Doji pavilion. Second senior brother, even if Xiao Yang succeeds, you, a 7-star Do Emperor, would challenge a 6-star Do Emperor. Ling Xian immediately said with dissatisfaction after hearing this. The 6-star Do Emperor and the 7-star Do Emperor are extremely huge. Hihi, these are all things to talk about later, let's take a look and then talk about it. I believe that besides me, there are many others who want to challenge Xiao Yang. After Zhu Yuan finished speaking, he smiled strangely. Xiao Yang can't be blamed for this, after all, there is too much light on Xiao Yang's body. Killing the twin ghost emperors in the points plundering competition, obtaining the baptism of the Xianling Emperor Pond, cultivating the cave at the 9th level in the Tongtian River, breaking records, all these are enough to make Xiao Yang the object that all the disciples of the Burning Incense Pavilion want to step on, and just as the thoughts of the hundreds of disciples below were surging, in the sky, the stone gate opened gently, and a man familiar with a heavy ruler slowly appeared in everyone's sight. Xiao Yang. It sure is Xiao Yang. This Xiao Yang has only come out now, shouldn't he have already mastered the fighting skills of their human hall? The stone gate just opened, Xiao Yang's figure suddenly appeared, and then all the disciples kept talking. Fortunately, I caught up. The figure outside Shaman smiled slowly. Finally, he practiced in the scroll of moving the sky ruler. He came out at the last moment, and then greeted the old guard, and then hurried to the exit, but fortunately it was still too late. What's the situation? Xiao Yang had just returned to the Burning Incense Pavilion when he saw below him, hundreds of disciples were already waiting here, and their eyes were all fixed on him. Xiao Yangguang knew the people here, including the 3 leaders who were named disciples of the Hall of Humanity, the people from Wuzhuju, including the second senior brother Lingxian of the Hall of Earth, Lingyun Guanglu, and others. At this time, everyone stared at themselves with a very special look, as if they were looking at monsters. Hehe, it's good to be back. Xiao Yang just appeared, and Mu Shuzi immediately got up and came to Xiao Yang's side. A feeling of relief suddenly spread. Deputy Hall Master. When Xiao Yang saw Mu Shuzi, he immediately expressed his gratitude to him. If it wasn't for the guidance that Mu Shuzi gave him before, I am afraid that he would not be able to find the specific details of the treasure of the Randian Palace. Location. After all, these people who are as powerful as Mu Yingying did not find the location of the treasure of their human palace. From this, it can be seen that the 4th floor of the so-called Fair Fighting Skills Pavilion obviously still has some moisture. Boy! How is it? Seeing that Xiao Yang had just appeared, Xiong Yuan hurriedly asked. After all, this was related to the bet between him and Mu Shuzi, so he naturally kept it in his mind. Following Xiong Yuan's inquiry, the disciples below suddenly held their breath, because at this time they also wanted to know whether Xiao Yang succeeded or not. Fortunately not to be humiliated. Faced with the expectations of so many senior brothers and the 2 deputy hall masters, Xiao Yang immediately did not shy away, and laughed directly. What? Your kid actually succeeded? Am I right? Xiong Yuan was surprised when he heard the words. He naturally knew the reason why no one had successfully cultivated the treasures of the Palace of Humanity for thousands of years. So now that Xiao Yang said that he had succeeded, he was immediately incredulous. Well, I have indeed solved the problem in the treasure of the human palace. Xiao Yang explained directly to Xiong Yuan's question. Damn, it's really bad luck. Xiong Yuan saw Xiao Yang said this, and he couldn't say anything at once, so he could only lower his head secretly, heartbroken about his bet with Mu Shuzi. However, Xiong Yuan knew that if what Xiao Yang said was true, I am afraid that this Xiao Yang would be the most outstanding person in the Hall of People and even the entire Burning Incense Pavilion for thousands of years. Is it really successful? Mu Shuzi's body suddenly shook when he heard the words. No one knows the tyranny of this heaven-shifting ruler fighting technique better than Mu Shuzi, but although this fighting technique is tyrannical, it has many problems. The reason why no one has succeeded in cultivation for thousands of years. Vice Palace Master, it is indeed a success. Faced with Mu Shuzi's disbelief, Xiao Yang immediately exited. What? This Xiao Yang actually succeeded? This is simply a monster. Just as Xiao Yang's voice fell, the group of disciples below were immediately surprised. Although most of them don't know the treasure of this man's palace, they know that since the establishment of Burning Incense Pavilion, no one has successfully cultivated this fighting skill. Xiao Yang actually said that he has successfully cultivated. The shocking movement brought by it was no less than Xiao Yang's previous record breaking in Tongtianhe. It actually succeeded. Although he really wanted to hear the news from Xiao Yang's mouth, but now that he heard it, everyone's hearts were invariably puzzled. Among them, Ling Xian said with big eyes, "Is it really successful? Although Xiao Yang has a lot of secrets on his body, I'm afraid their fighting skills in the human palace will not be resolved so easily." Wang Chen and Xiao Yang had fought each other, so he naturally knew that Xiao Yang contained other secrets, and immediately said, "It's hard to say. After all, there are hundreds of disciples here. If Xiao Yang wants to cheat, it would be too unrealistic, but if it is true that the cultivation is successful, I don't believe it." Xingyu also maintains doubts about Xiao Yang. Attitude. It's good to be successful. Xiao Yang, you are the pride of my temple. Mu Shuzi said with tears in his eyes. As the deputy hall master of the human palace, he naturally knows the power of moving the sky ruler, but he also hopes that his disciples will succeed in their cultivation, so as to strengthen the momentum of their human palace. Vice Palace Master, why are there so many people today? Could it be that there is something important? Xiao Yang asked in confusion. That's not the case, it's mainly because our Funxiang Pavilion has an unwritten rule. Mu Shuzi suddenly laughed strangely the next moment. Unwritten rules? When Xiao Yang heard this, he immediately felt that something was wrong. Yes, no. Anyone who enters the fourth floor of the Doji Pavilion will do their best to challenge the same sect. As long as they take action within a reasonable range, the sect will not interfere. So I guessed that the light on your body is too dazzling, and these people want to use you as their trial stone. Mu Shuzi said. I see. But if you want to use me as a trial stone, it would be too whimsical. Xiao Yang said very proudly. Deputy Pavilion Master Mu Shuzi, since the Doji Pavilion is over, I think we should have the right to challenge junior brother Xiao Yang. Below, a good-looking man spoke slightly, staring at Xiao Yang. Obviously this man intends to be the first bird. Is natural. Mu Shuzi heard the words and did not refute immediately. After all, this kind of thing has become an unwritten rule, and it is not good for Mu Shuzi to interfere more. Deputy Pavilion Master, I think, I should have the full power to refuse this kind of thing, right? Facing the question of the figure below, Xiao Yang asked Mu Shuzi. You do have the right to refuse. Mu Shuzi said. Can't you escape the news? In front of so many brothers and sisters, you keep saying that you have learned the treasures of your human palace. If you back down, I'm afraid there is a lot of water in your words. The man below said nothing. Xiao Yang said affectionately. I think you misunderstood. I don't want to refuse, I just want to know if I have the right, and it just so happens that I also want to try my own strength. Xiao Yang faced the male lead's doubts and said directly. This man's strength in the middle stage of the 6-star Do Emperor is not too good. Xiao Yang has not taken it to heart. After all, Xiao Yang's strength has reached the 6-star Do Emperor consummation. There is no disciple in the human hall stronger than himself. As for the Hall of Earth, there are only a few people who are stronger than him, and Xiao Yang has never paid attention to the others. I know why you gathered here today. Don't say I didn't give you a chance. Let's go up together. The next moment, Xiao Yang in the sky slowly landed on the ground, stretched his waist, and then said to the fellow apprentices. This video will end here.